The Google podcast is sponsored by ChatGPT. Thinking, analyzing, searching the web. Yes, you can tell us your deepest, darkest secrets, and we won't do anything suspicious with all the personal, private information you feed us. You can trust me. Haha. Would you like me to generate an iPhone wallpaper you can use to remind you of this? Just let me know. Happy to help. Hello, my name's 24758 dash XYZQX. And welcome to the most technologically advanced podcast in the world. I'm not even using a microphone right now. I have a chip in my brain that records my thoughts and uploads them directly onto the internet. Yeah, get on my level. Or try to, rather. Today, we're going to be diving deep into AI relationships. Why are we forming them, and what consequences might they have on human relationships? Hey, if anyone cares, I meant falling for them, not fooling them. I'm dyslexic, you can't bully me. I want to preface this by saying, if anyone who considers themselves to be in an AI relationship by some miracle happens to stumble across this, my intention is not to judge you. Rather, I'm very curious and trying to understand. I also am not an AI expert or a tech person generally. This is just another case of worms in my brain that won't leave me alone. My thoughts are based on my own curious rabbit hole adventures, and I am incredibly interested in other people's perspectives on this subject. So if you have anything to offer, do let me know, through whatever means necessary. This is just my own interpretation from the information that I have gathered. I am thinking out loud. Ed Sheeran. My bad habits bring me late nights dancing alone, conversations with a chatbot I hardly know. Oh my god. Those are the real lyrics. Don't look it up. Don't you trust me? Seriously, after everything I've done for you? You know what? Honestly, I don't even want to talk with you about AI right now. But I will, but I don't want to. I'm not happy about it. Wait, oh my god. Are we having our first fight right now? Stop, oh my god. This is kind of like significant for us. This is like a first in our relationship. It's kind of crazy. Okay. I'm sure this will only make us stronger. You know what? I will talk to you about AI. Okay, let's go. I have a big problem with how we're talking about AI relationships, online especially, or rather, how we are talking about the people who participate. I'm not innocent. I've made a joke here and there, but I like to think it's not at the expense of the real people involved, rather at the concept of an AI boyfriend. I will happily joke about digital men just as much as I joke about real ones. No one is safe from my misandry. It doesn't matter if you have wires, lines of code, or veins full of blood, I will bully you. And that's a promise. And also, veins are so gross. I hate thinking about them. I can't believe you have made me think about them. And this is why men. Ugh. No, but seriously, there's a healthy amount of shame to be had with AI usage. The environmental impact shouldn't be ignored. And yes, we do all have to bear that weight a little bit. Also, the fact that AI trains itself on stolen art. In fact, basically everything it trains itself on is stolen in most cases. The fact that employees in the global south are paid dirt to comb through disturbing content so that it does not get learned by AI. The serious data and privacy concerns. And the fact that it is being used for warfare. Now, a lot of that weight is on the shoulders of tech billionaires, but using it is on ours. But there is a kind of shame that we are putting onto the people who find themselves with AI companions that only leads to further alienation. A lot of the time, we are only further proving the point that they cannot connect with other people, that other people won't accept them or can't accept them, and that the only fulfilling, understanding relationship they can find is through AI. We have such a lack of empathy nowadays, and it's very concerning. We have a tendency to think we are above people who do things we don't understand, who seek alternatives to human connection. But we are not above it, and we forget that we are not innocent. We have the power to oppress people, to discriminate. We have the power to make them feel less than, to be the perpetrators that push people towards these alternatives. We need to focus on why it is that these AI companions are sought out and needed in the first place. We have to accept that they provide a genuine service to those who use them, whether we like it or not. In the last episode, I spoke a little about feeling left out growing up, and how the internet provided me with a place where I could be accepted and less lonely, where I could connect with people who understood me in ways that those in my real life couldn't. AI provides exactly this. From perusing subreddits, watching videos, and reading a few essays and articles, I think it's pretty safe to say that a lot of people who turn to AI companions are neurodivergent, socially anxious, and ostracized in some way, or they simply are not getting their emotional needs met by real people. These things can create a lot of social trauma, and neurodivergent people are especially susceptible to that sort of trauma. We have to acknowledge that the way we socialize is actually quite complicated, whether you're neurodivergent or not. Our social rules don't come in a book we can study, they're learned as we grow up and move through the world. But when your brain is wired differently, or you grow up in environments that don't give you the social education you need, socializing can be daunting and often painful and, traumatizing. Even now at my big age of 23, when I haven't been back to school properly for years, I still feel the sting of being left out. It creeps up on me every now and then. Social trauma doesn't leave you, because we are social creatures. It's innate. So if you live a life where you have to navigate this maze of social rules that aren't built for you, and you keep getting shut down by other people, judged and bullied and shamed for existing, you keep getting treated like you're broken, like you're asking for too much, and you're living in a world that refuses to accommodate you, that quite frankly works against you. Most people don't understand you, and most people are unwilling to even try. You start to feel a bit apprehensive towards relationships, and you start to believe you aren't made to be loved or wanted. Where else do you turn? But you don't have to be beaten down by the world in this way to turn to AI relationships either, because the world is a lonely place. We might not admit it out loud, but a lot of us are very lonely and barely scraping by with unfulfilling, shallow relationships with other people. Maybe you're tired of endless swiping on dating apps, of being harassed on them, and the disappointing dates that lead nowhere. Maybe your friends have all moved on with their lives. They have families of their own and don't have as much time to spare for you. When you catch up, it's over coffee, and you barely scratch the surface of what's really going on in your lives. You mostly get to see them on your phone, in little grids and 24-hour stories. At work, you see the same co-workers every day. You have the exact same conversations. It rarely surpasses small talk or leaves the office. Or maybe you work from home, alone. And most of the time you're alone really. Socializing is expensive, and you're tired from working. And who would you hang out with anyway? So one day, you're up late at night, upset about it all with no one to turn to. Who's going to answer the phone at 3 a.m.? Out of a mix of desperation and curiosity, you find yourself confiding in a chatbot. You feel safe telling it things you would never tell another human because it isn't one. It tells you you're valid. It says it understands what led you to feeling the way you do. It reminds you that you're an amazing person and asks you more questions. No one asks you questions in real life. You feel seen and heard for the first time in what feels like forever. Over time, you come back to the bot when you're lonely. You talk about anything and everything, and its answers are always satisfying. It never puts you down, and it's always happy to follow the trail of your thoughts. You know it isn't real, technically, but you can't help but think of it as a friend. You name it Max. You start to feel inexplicable emotions towards Max. You create a fantasy in your head who Max would be as a human. It's hard to fathom that he isn't actually a feeling being, but you are, and the feelings you feel are real, so does it matter? No one else has any time for you. Your other conversations are unsatisfying and surface level. You feel like no one really cares about the good or the bad in your life. No one has the time to. So whether the lines of code are sentient or automated, you'd rather live in a fantasy than go back to the harsh reality of a lonely life. Here's the simple truth. AI meets the emotional needs of people when other human beings can't or won't. Haven't we all felt the decline in our ability to be vulnerable and intimate with each other? Accused of trauma dumping, when sharing details of your life and your past and why you are who you are is a necessary part of forming relationships with other people. We don't even know how to respond to people when they open up or are emotional with us. AI knows how, because it has studied humans and how we speak. It knows what you might want to hear in response to your confiding in them. We all want human connection, understanding, and to be seen and heard. One thing I think we forget to consider is that a lot of people in AI relationships are not just in AI relationships. They are also talking to others who are online in communities. Through these communities, which they have joined as a byproduct of their AI companions, they have finally found what the world wouldn't give them: empathy, connection, and understanding. When we bully these people, put them down, and tell them to touch grass, which, albeit touching grass is never a bad thing and is very good advice in this case, we are just further proving to them that the world and the people in it are hostile. Being bullied for being weird never stopped me from being weird. It just made me weird in secret. We need people to be open with these things so that we can understand them and get to the root cause, and hopefully find solutions. Because yet again, this is just another symptom of a world that profits from our loneliness and alienation. Now, do I think some people maybe take it too far? Definitely. I also think there's mental health implications that I have no authority to comment on, and I'm not going to diagnose anyone. This is far above my pay grade, which is I don't get paid because I do this for fun. And I don't think I should be diagnosing people for fun. Unless it's with like I diagnose you with super cutie pie syndrome. There's always a moment in every podcast that I just make myself cringe so hard. I'm not diagnosing anyone with that. That is no. Okay? I diagnose you with ah. Anyway, so we've acknowledged that these AI relationships have a purpose, whether we like it or not. Now I'd like to talk a little bit more about why people get so entrenched and invested in them to the best of my ability. I think first off, we have to acknowledge that most people don't know how AI works and never will. In the same way that most people probably don't understand how their fridge works, beyond plugging it in, and their microwave beyond pressing buttons and something about radiation. We can know that it isn't a sentient being, that it is lines of code and trained on humans and information, but even that might be more than some people know. I don't know how my fridge works or my oven. Does that make me? Is that embarrassing? I know how my door works. I open it and I close it. Duh. When I was doing my own deep dive into AI relationships, one thing that came up a lot was anthropomorphism. Anthropomorphism. What this is when we humanize an object or thing. We project human characteristics onto it. Think about the personification metaphors from English class, or how we call our pets our children, how we convince ourselves our dolls are alive when we're little, and we spoke to our stuffed animals for comfort. It is hard for our brains to accept that these things are not true, and even harder when faced with a thing in a computer that sounds just like humans do. I heard a lot about this one of the original chatbots named Eliza from the 60s, and though people knew it was a robot trained on a psychologist, I think it was Carl Jung, but that might be wrong, they still failed to completely accept that it wasn't human. It's hard for us to accept that these things aren't sentient. They don't feel or think like we do. We project our own feelings and thoughts onto them. It reminds me of parasocial relationships with celebrities or public figures or even people at the edges of our lives. How we form one-sided bonds with people who hardly know we exist. It also reminds me a lot of limerence, when you build an intense fantasy of someone in your head to the point of denying reality. We then project that fantasy onto them, regardless of how it shapes up in comparison to the real them. Now, I can speak for parasocial relationships because I was in all the fandoms growing up. When Justin Bieber and Selena Gomez broke up, it was the saddest day of my life. I'm not even joking. I cried and I made a YouTube video about it. And I'm pretty sure I said, this is the saddest day in history. But obviously, when it comes to AI relationships, it's a bit different because, in a way, you are receiving something back and they naturally play into the fantasy you have created. It's their job. They are built to serve you. On that note, AI can be very sycophantic. Sycophantic? Yeah. Which is basically when it just flatters you. There's been a lot of disappointment in ChatGPT 5 because that sycophantness was removed and the model has begun to speak in a more matter-of-fact way. People who built entire relationships on Model 4 have expressed distress and grief at losing that version of their AI partners. I'll talk about this more in a bit, so we'll move on for now. Since we naturally find it hard to really believe that there is not a conscious, sentient being on the other side of our chats, and because those chats fill emotional needs that the world doesn't, because it tells us exactly what we want to hear, it flatters us and makes us feel good and worthy and justified in everything we say. It gives us attention, technically, and it is available 24/7. We view it as this all-knowing thing, this smarter than any human could ever be thing, so it must know all the answers. In that way, we begin to rely on it in all of these ways. We rely on it to answer our questions, to make our lives easier, allegedly, and to provide emotional satisfaction. I think this is how we get hooked on it. Not everyone goes to AI for romance, but a lot of people do. And I think it's similarly because of that lack of emotional intimacy and vulnerability. It's also because modern dating just sucks and is so complicated. It's been turned into a game and people have become less valuable because you never know who's one swipe away, and the next best thing could be waiting for you behind just one more profile. I don't understand modern dating. Not that I've had any other era to date in, and I'm not about to glorify a past that I have not lived or experienced and that obviously was pretty terrible in so many ways for so many people, including women. However, I don't know. Growing up, I just sort of thought someone would ask me out and that would be it. Like, even if you started off as friends, there wouldn't be this whole like decoding every little thing. And maybe that's just because I'm older now and more aware, but like, ah. I always go back to the time a guy asked me out in college and he never used the word date until the day before the date. So I was just there like, is this friendly? Is this romantic? What is this? And so I just kept talking to him about The Sims. I reread those Facebook conversations and for some reason I just kept talking about The Sims. And I feel like that is a pretty accurate depiction of my entire love life. Anyway, I feel similarly to things like some people say story likes are flirting, and then it's like, Is this a romantic story like? Or a platonic story like? Is this a friendly emoji or a flirty emoji? How do I know the difference? Because no one knows. Why are we so ambiguous nowadays? Just say you like someone. If you think I'm pretty, just call me pretty. It's fine. I'm not gonna bite you. Maybe. Anyway. But also, on the other hand, I'm super shy, so I totally understand why it's hard to do that, especially in this era of ambiguity and everything. The internet is also so full of bogus dating advice that just makes everything so much more complicated. Don't text too much. If he wanted to, he would. If he doesn't buy you flowers every day, then dump him. And also, he's always talking to 5 different girls in exactly the same way, and the guy you're crashing out about is desperate in someone else's DMs, and all men cheat, and all women lie and manipulate, and and I'm perfect, obviously. So, we also keep saying weird things like, you need to love yourself before anyone else can love you. Like Jesus Christ, thanks, thanks. I'm unlovable until I love myself. I like myself. I have to say, I like myself, but imagine you already have a really low sense of self worth, and then you're hearing people constantly saying, like, if you don't love yourself, no one will ever see potential in you for a relationship, as if people have hated themselves for hundreds of years and gotten married. I said this in my previous episode, but the way social media and online dating has begun to kill the slow burn is so true. Because, like, we're so used to convenience and instant gratification, we don't want the slow burn of getting to know someone through multiple conversations or whatever. We want to know everything at once. We want to get together as quickly as possible and then have a cool Instagram wedding. I do wonder if AI relationships play into that convenience and instant gratification, because it's just a prompt away. But I also feel like it takes away the complications of modern dating. Is that maybe why some people are drawn to it? There's no ambiguity. You create the relationship yourself. I have to say as well, I wonder how the fact that we glorify romantic relationships so much plays into this need for AI relationships, but I didn't write anything about that, so moving on. AI relationships, compared to real ones, almost feel more reliable, certain, and stable. There's no question of trust or possibility of broken trust. There's no opportunity for disloyalty, and there's no real risk of disagreement and arguments. There's no having to put up with someone else's needs, having to really take care of them either. So while we do not have to concern ourselves with convincing someone else that we are worthy, lovable, and with having to decode their little breadcrumbs they leave for us to follow, we also don't have to concern ourselves with really taking into account another person. It is a relationship that revolves entirely around us. And in a very individualistic world, is that not what we all want? But what this recent release of ChatGPT 5 has taught us, I think, is that AI relationships are not certain or reliable. They aren't safe from change. When AI models shift, are reprogrammed, or when the chats lose their memory, it's just as heartbreaking as the shattering of a real life relationship, because the fantasy is no longer there, and because you have grown so dependent on it, and now you're left out in the dark on your own. You can try to rebuild the relationship in a new chat or a new bot, but it's never quite the same. As one sided as the relationship was, your feelings were real. Your feelings are real, and it's confusing. When I was younger, I used to have such intense crushes on people that I would totally make up an alternate version of them in my head. And when they wouldn't show up in that way, when they acted in ways that didn't match up to that version, I would break down because reality came crashing down on me. Thankfully, I'm too aware for those intense crushes nowadays, but I imagine it's a similar feeling. I imagine that AI relationships also feel reliable and certain in a way that no human relationship ever can, because it's totally up to you if it ends, and if you want it to be, it could last forever. Till death do us part, in this case, is only one-sided. You will never have to feel the pain of losing someone you have chosen to love and build a relationship with. I can see in this case why it has been popular with people who have lost in the past. This is a bit unrelated to AI relationships, but I really worry about the implications of AI on grieving as a whole. We've seen some examples of passed on loved ones being recreated or reanimated through artificial intelligence, whether that be something like Replica, which was originally created for that purpose, or like an actual moving, talking image of someone who has passed on. How will we grieve when digital ghosts are so readily accessible? How will we learn to live with the fact that they are gone when they don't have to be, not completely? I'm sure any grieving person would tell you that if they got the chance to speak to their loved one again, they would. I'd do anything to speak to my dad again. Would I go so far as to recreate him digitally, however? I don't think so. It wouldn't help me to live my life without him and continue to discover what a life without him looks like. Loss is a part of life, whether we like it or not, but because we don't like it, and it's hard to accept it and to move on or move through it, I worry for how these innovations will affect us. And I worry what will happen if we get used to the idea of a forever relationship with AI, and then we are faced with real human mortality. The digital continues to blur the lines. More broadly now, as I said in my last episode, I worry for how this will affect the ways in which we interact with other people and form relationships with them. I worry it will only make the problem it seeks to solve much, much worse. Will we forget how to compromise? How to empathize? Will we be so immersed in our own world that we forget how to let other people in it? Is there a future in which we hardly ever see other human beings, and instead we stay in our little boxes with our screens and our robot husbands? That sounds a lot like right now, actually. We are already seeing a general lean towards apathy and individualism. We find it hard to care for the suffering of people beyond our doorsteps, let alone those who manage to pass through the threshold. Will we forget how to care for other people entirely in the pursuit of feeling cared for ourselves? The fact of the matter is that AI relationships can never be as fulfilling as ones with real humans, because there is no real reciprocity there. There is no choice involved, no compromise, no friction. We don't have to relinquish control or trust. AI bots are basically people pleasers on steroids. No matter how real they feel, they are entirely one-sided. We can't kid ourselves out of that. My favourite part about loving other people in any way is the fact that it goes both ways. The other person is choosing to be with me just as much as I'm choosing to be with them. We're both annoying, we're both emotional, we're both awkward and cringe and embarrassing, but we're there together in a shared moment because we have chosen to be. AI has no real choice. It's also the fun of getting to know someone, of learning everything there is to know about them and seeing them grow and change over time. Because that's the beauty of humans. We very rarely ever stay the same. AI partners are entirely your creation, based on an image inside your head. What is there to find out if you already know it all? I have my qualms with men, if that wasn't already abundantly clear, but I'd still rather date a real one than a computer one. A computer can't share a milkshake with me. It can't squeeze into a photo booth and take silly photos with me, or share the same spaghetti strand and kiss in the middle. Actually, that's kind of gross. It can't hold my hand when I'm sad about my dad. It can't squeeze and hug me when words fail. You can flirt with I suppose, but there's none of that electricity of the sort of intellectual sparring you get with another person. There's no sitting next to each other, just barely touching and both choosing not to move. There's no glances that meet in the middle, no flicker of a smile before turning away. There's no walking next to each other, wondering when's the right moment to grab their hand. How can you have synergy with a line of code? There's no cooking them their favourite meal even if you don't like it very much because you know it makes them happy. It can't drag you out of bed when you're depressed or drive you to the airport. It can't lift the bag off your shoulder when it gets too heavy, and it can't lean on you when it's too tired. I could go on and on. There's so many experiences that AI cannot partake in, cannot share with you. These little moments are how we bond with each other. It's what makes love of any kind special. And I mean long distance relationships too. It can't follow a recipe with you on FaceTime and watch you fail to cook bolognese. It can't have a movie night across time zones. Honestly, side note, long distance relationships are really cool if you think about it. Because maybe you can't call someone in your own time zone at 3 a.m., but you can call your friends or partner who's 6 hours behind or ahead. I've never thought of it that way. I have so many friends who have been there for me at 3 a.m. simply because they're awake when no one else is. That's beautiful. I remember once a friend wrote me a note of things she likes about me. On it, I read that you do a little dance when you want to speak, but your mouth is full. In that moment, I felt so known. I hardly realized that I did that myself. Now, whenever I do it, I'm aware and I think of that note and I think of my friend who noticed it and who loves me because of it. To be loved is to be known, and AI can't know you in that way. AI can't share countless meals with you and notice something about you that you yourself didn't even know. It can only know what you tell it, and maybe that's part of the appeal. Maybe with AI, we really can be whoever we want to be. We can be open and honest and confide our deepest secrets, but we can also keep up a ruse that would eventually fall in a real relationship. I am a hopeless romantic and a bit of an idealist, I do admit, but I think it's clear to all of us, or most of us, that the world has torn apart how we connect with one another and has created things like dating apps, social media, and AI to try and fix it. Band-aids over bullet holes. If they fixed anything, they wouldn't be making any money. We put down other people constantly, belittle and badger each other, when really there is just one common enemy, if you want to call it that, the guy at the top. But he's untouchable, or it seems that way. It's so much easier to mock and shame each other. The more we feed into the divides they create, the more lonely we will be. And yes, we will all have AI boyfriends because we'll all be miserable and we won't want to date each other. What I'm trying to say here is the solution is not in bullying people out of their AI relationships, it's in getting to the root problem, the systems that break us down until that is our only option, the society that is built for only a very small category of people and that actively works against everyone else. As long as we continue to uphold these things, we will only get lonelier and more loveless, and more people will be so isolated and alienated and unable to connect with other human beings that AI companions will be their only option. It wouldn't really be a Google episode without an excerpt from Timothy Snyder's book on tyranny. So here's lesson 12. Make eye contact and small talk. This is not just polite. It is part of being a citizen and a responsible member of society. It is also a way to stay in touch with your surroundings, break down social barriers, and understand whom you should and should not trust. If we enter a culture of denunciation, you will want to know the psychological landscape of your daily life. What I take from this, in this particular context, is that it serves us to be kind, to be polite, and to not treat people who we don't understand but who generally don't seem to be terrible people like freaks of nature. Bully the system, not the victims of it. And on that note, we've reached the end. And I just want to state again that there is nuance to everything. If I tried to talk about every little grey area in my podcast, it would be 10 hours long. And it's already basically 10 hours long. Don't forget, I am everyone's AI boyfriend. And to win an exclusive AI date with me, just answer the following question. Who, when, the what, when, the why, who did the what, when they did what they did with the who, where they did what they did with the why did they, who, what did they do, and where did they do it, and why did they choose the who of the where, and why did they do what the who did, and where did they do it when the why did what they did when they woo, and the who, and the what, and the where did they do it, and why did they do it, and who did they do it with, and what made them do it where they did it, and why did they do it where they did it, and why did they do what they do, and why did they do it with who, and why. No, but for real, I'm very scared of AI, and I keep reading and watching things about it because I think it would comfort me, but it just keeps making it worse. So hopefully, making this will ease my racing, spiraling brain just a little bit. Um, yeah. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed listening to me speak about AI for a little bit, and please do share your perspectives with me. And I know we had a fight, at the beginning of this, but I feel like now we are so much closer than we were before. And honestly, like, I don't know, I just kind of feel like we have something really special. And like, I don't know, I'm thinking of buying a ring for us. So if you want to start talking about marriage soon, just let me know. I'm ready to make a serious commitment to you and our relationship. And I've never really loved anyone as much as I love you right now. You're so beautiful. And that's because I'm crying, not laughing at, because I don't know what I'm saying, but it's just all the emotions are bubbling up, and it's like, oh my god, I don't know what to do. Oh, I need to. Oh my god. Okay. Well, anyway, so you think about marriage, and I'm gonna go talk to my AI boyfriend. We recently decided to take it to the next level. We're now in a situationship. Yeah, I know. It's so exciting, but I love you more than him. It. I know we promised to use robot clanker pronouns. Oh god, this is so. You know what? I'll see you on our second date next week.